Welcome to the party, pal. GRC Mafia. Right out the gate, we're here to break down barriers, foster collaboration and community within the space, working towards a more secure future for everybody. Definitely a learning and growing environment. Today, we have a special talk with CISO Assistant about some of the new features, the core concepts, and initial settings as well. We've had a couple previous streams with them as well, and definitely drop your questions in chat. I'll go through and mark them, and then we may discuss it during the presentation or shortly thereafter. You can also hop into our Discord server. So if you join our Discord server, you can drop your social media links in our live chat channel along with other resources. Also, if you guys have questions outside of the primary discussion, that's definitely encouraged as well. If you guys have other questions or otherwise, worst case scenario, we'll circle back around to that, bring it up in the Discord server or otherwise too. Don't share anything that you don't want to be public. If you happen to do so, definitely reach out to me on Discord or LinkedIn. You can also contact me at contact@studygrc.org. Also, we have our website here. We have 5 days a week streaming for right now. Our website, studygrc.org, has the rest of the platforms we stream to, our calendar for the most up-to-date information on what's coming up, and our resources page. Tonight is our primary weekly meeting, where we will be releasing a new resources page as well. So without further ado there, let's go ahead and transition over here. Welcome to the party, pal, Abder. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure to join you guys, and always a pleasure to interact with the community.
Perfect. I'll go ahead and hand it over to you, and thank you again.
You're most welcome. So yeah, as a transition to what Chris just said, this is the continuity of what we already mentioned last time, where we focus primarily on the installation and we showcase what the config builder is bringing as capabilities for the installation. Of course, there's multiple ways to do that. We focus primarily on the self-hosted case for the community edition. This session, as requested on the last one, is more functional, so less technical, less command line, so it should be easier to follow up, and you can ask your questions as Chris mentioned. So let me switch focus here, and we should be good. So I'm going to just do a brief introduction to make sure that all the theoretical concepts behind CISO Assistant are understood, and I always like to start with the why. The reason why we start working on CISO Assistant initially is around the simple problem framing that I'm showing here, is that there's a lot of fragmentation when we're dealing with GRC, when we're dealing with cybersecurity program management as a whole. And the thing that we're bringing to the table here is that for that fragmentation, where you're managing multiple Excel sheets left and right, where you're having multiple tools, and whenever you want to extract any single information or anything actionable, you end up spending too much time, or you need even, in some cases, even a data analyst to get you a simple information. So that's why we started with this idea of let's build a one-stop shop where you have all those concepts that are interacting with each other in a smart way. And let's have it also in a multi-paradigm approach, because we have so many approaches to handle and manage cybersecurity. Some people are driven by compliance, other by risk assessment, other by only the CTI or threat modeling. Others are coming from a pen test background. So there's so many ways to approach this, but at the end of the day, we have the same objective, and we wanted to provide something that feeds and matches this multi-paradigm approach. Also, one of the challenges is the repetition, and I think you guys are familiar with this. There's a lot of bad reputation in GRC related to the fact that it's polluted by a lot of paperwork, and that with that paperwork comes a lot of repetition. So that's why we introduced this concept called decoupling that was well received by the community, where we can just split the action plan out of the compliance, out of the risk, and put it in central place so that we can reuse it as much as possible. So reusability is something at the core of CISO Assistant. Also, we came up with a lot of built-in libraries and an open format that you can customize and push yours, and that's why a lot of those libraries actually are pushed and submitted by the community. You have mapping to avoid repetition. You have data import to bring your existing stuff. And there's so many other features around automation, around the API, and the cloning, and so on and so on. I guess one other challenge that we can agree on is the reporting overhead, and that's what we're trying to fix thanks to those built-in analytics. Of course, you can export your data and have it on your BI environment. You have so many layers to generate reports, and you also have this assistance with X-ray engine that will scan your inputs to make sure they are consistent and coherent before you share anything. And one less fun challenge is the affordability, because there are very interesting tools out there, but not everyone actually can afford those 20Ks, 80Ks, 100Ks. I heard sometimes in some cases. And for startups or like mid-sized companies, they're just starting and want to like establish their foundation of a cybersecurity program. They can just afford that to begin with. And that's why even in large companies, they end up just like going back to the bad habit of going to Excel sheets because it's already there. And that's what we're trying to fix by making something affordable. And nothing is better than zero. That's why we started with this free and full open source community edition. And why I'm mentioning the full part is the fact that the community edition is not a freemium. It's not a bait to get you hooked and then get you like have to pay for the next edition. The community edition, for those of you who are familiar with it, is pretty comprehensive. And the pro plan is more of a scale up feature, and this comes with the support and some bonus functionalities. And even for the pro plan, we put the price in at a very reasonable price, and it's compatible either with SaaS or on-premises. Last but not least, since we are dealing with GRC, there's a lot of sensitive information there, including evidences, the risk assessment, and those things. Even if you harden or secure your SaaS as much as you want, is simply not suitable, let's say, for government or regulated institution like in finance and so on. So they are like very keen to have everything on premises, and that's why we did that like from day one, how to make it compatible with multiple type of deployments. And on top of that deployment, you have this open format that allow you to customize everything and suit it to your needs. Right. So even if it's like it was a long introduction, the idea is just like to get you up to speed with the vision of the products and what are the problems that we're solving, and to see if your guys are within that realm or not. So moving on to one important aspect is when we're dealing with GRC, there's, I mentioned this multi-paradigm thing, is that some of you are probably coming from compliance realm, some are more focused on the risk register and doing risk assessment, other are more focused on the policies, definitions, and how to track like drifts and so on. What we're trying to push as a vision for CISO Assistant is that the operational part of things need to be at the core of this. That's why this Venn diagram is kind of biased with this extra oval form here. We wanted to push it toward what we are calling operational GRC. We want people actually to be always link the operational side of things to GRC and have it as a core component. And when you think about it, it's just common sense, right? Whatever you're doing, what matters to protect your organization is what you are actually implementing. By this, I mean, it could be technical, it could be processes, it could be documentation, it could be training, it could be so many things. But this is what matters at the end of the day, is what are you doing to protect your organization? And those GRC components are just feeding or helping you prioritize or helping you structure or help you communicate. That's why we're kind of, I dare to say it, obsessed with the operational side of things, because this is the way of getting out of this paperwork bad reputation to something more structured and more valuable to the company. I'm going to skip a few things just to go focus on this multi-paradigm thing that I keep repeating. And by this, I'm just boiling things down to those core components. Whatever assessment you're doing, if you're coming from the compliance perspective, you usually are dealing with those two big components. Of course, there are others, obviously, but there's two big areas, either internal compliance management or you're managing your third parties. For both, you are dealing with a set of requirements, right? In some cases, third party, we are pushing the R of TPRM, and you're also modeling your risk scenarios, or you're doing actual risk assessment, in which case you have in those risk scenarios. In other cases, it's none of those two. It could be some internal audits, it could be some self-identified issues, something of vocabulary that we find in finance, or it could be a pen test. So at the end of the day, what you're dealing with essentially is either you need to comply with some requirements, you have identified some risk scenarios that you want to cover, or you find somehow some findings that you want to fix and improve. And that's why the whole idea of CISO Assistant is to bring you each time to this core component, which is the applied controls. So applied controls are essentially your action plan and what you're actually doing, to go back to the yellow part of my previous diagram. Right. There's so many features. I think it's better if I just go jump into the application and start showcasing them. But just keep in mind, you can pause later on the video and go over this part. And there's also PDF formats for this datasheet if you want to take a look afterwards. Right. I think I'm going to stop here and look at the questions if I missed something. Did I, Chris? Are still good? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I think you're still good there. There was a little bit of talk between the Pro and the Community Edition. I believe about 90% of the features are in the Community Edition, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And I think...
And then also, I'll drop the link for the roadmap, because you can also see all of the stuff planned for the roadmap, and a large portion of that is on the Community Edition too.
Definitely, yeah. Like I said, the key word to keep in mind is that the Pro plan is more of a scale-up thing. You can start with the community and move to the Pro plan pretty easily, because we have built-in features to help you with that migration. And we didn't want to put too much there. It's more of enterprise features. And actually, even we went with some anti-pattern, so to speak, where even the SSO is in Community Edition. So yeah, that's the whole thing. So let me switch to the demo. And I think, yeah, did my screen switch? Perfect. So when you just started with the application, in some cases, you are maybe getting overwhelmed with a lot of features. It's fine. I'm going to just walk you through what are the critical ones to get started. And the most important one is to think about your organization. Is what kind of topology, what kind of vision that you have from that organization. And the first thing that you'll start deciding on is the domains split. So what domains are they are essentially those containers that will contain all your objects. What I mean by objects, it could be your audits, could be your risk assessment, could be your evidences. All those objects in CISO Assistant live within a domain. So the domain, what it brings, it brings the airbag capability, so that you can put some kind of roles to say who has access to what with thanks to those domains. And within the domain, you can split it logically this time as perimeters, and you can map the domains. If I say a domain is probably a department or division or business unit or the whole company at once, the perimeters could be your projects, could be your product or service line, and so on. The next thing that you want to do is start adding your users. You simply add the user here with the email, and keep in mind this warning that when you just start creating a new user, they don't have any permission. So you need to grant your users some permissions with those specific domains. So you find everything here in the user groups. And to make even the airbag simpler and smoother for everyone, whenever you create a domain, you will have 4 custom groups that are automatically created for you, so that when you're doing user management, it's pretty straightforward. You just go to the user and you decide for this one, the person will be an analyst on that one, a reader, and so on. You can create whatever combination that you want to achieve there. Right. So the first thing, again, is to think about the organization that you want to map. And if you are lacking inspiration, you can literally create just one and have everything in a single place. Moving on to the next part, now that you have the domain, you can split them in parameters and you can start having your users. The next part will be to declare or import your assets. This will allow me to showcase a few things. Now, the whole idea about assets are whether one common question that is frequently asked is, should I like have my whole CMDB mapped to CISO Assistant, or should I have a subset? My usual answer is to focus on what matters to your risk assessment or to your audits. If it's not relevant to the communication or to those threat modeling or something like this, don't bring it, because it's going to just overload the application for no reason. Of course, on the performance, we are good there, but it's about the usability of the solution, because you will have like a big list of assets appearing left and right in some multiple areas, and you're just gonna get overwhelmed with details. So short answer for this is just focus on the level of granularity that is useful for your threat modeling or for your compliance follow-up. Now that you defined your organization, you will start adding and bring in the frameworks that you want to use. Again, you could start with an angle of compliance, in which the first thing that you want to choose is the framework you're starting with. Once you click there, you see that there's this filter about framework that is available, and you can pick frameworks in different languages, and you can search for a specific one. I know that you guys are big fans of the NIST family of frameworks, so we can definitely just go to NIST CSF. I think we have them there, and you can look for so many other frameworks. And I believe we also have some filters about the providers. Let's go here. And you can see all the frameworks of the NIST that have been included, including the infamous or famous 853. I think this is the kind of the Bible for all those controls, right? So you have small one, big ones, depending on how the level of granularity that you're looking for, and you can even import yours if you want to. Yeah. So to bring one framework, you can simply just click here and you import it to like the loaded libraries. And keep also in mind that within those frameworks, there are other concepts that can be packaged as a library. They could be the threats. Here you have the Mitre. So yeah, Mitre is pretty trendy in the past 48 hours for good or bad reasons. But this one is about the attack Mitre matrix. This can be useful to have like a catalog of threats. And you can even like standardize your reference controls. Reference controls are templates of the controls that you want to use. You can bring mapping to move from one framework to the other. Actually, this is pretty fun. I'm going to bring one. Let's use the NIST 1.1 to 2.0. And if you want to deal with some risk analysis, since we are implementing the qualitative risk assessment, you can bring the starting point, your matrix as a starting point for risk assessment. Right. So with this, we've done the initial setup, which consists of defining your organization, domains and parameters, users, shaping your assets if you're going to use them for risk assessment, and then bring in the essential objects that you want to have to start using the application. Now you should be ready. And this is the part where everyone will choose their weapon, so to speak. Everyone will choose their path. Some users will go with the compliance module to begin doing audits. Others will dive into risk assessment. Others will go with the policies establishment. Others will go with the findings tracking, because they come in from this like pen testing approach. Either way, at the end of the day, everything will be boiled down to some actions that you will find in the operational side of things. So in the operational side of things, this is where you find your applied controls. Keep in mind that applied controls is the most critical aspect of the application, because this is where you put everything together about what do I need to do. It could be a policy, it could be technical implementation, it could be documentation, could be training, could be so many things. And this is where it ends up as an aggregated action plan, where you have the statuses, priorities, ETAs, and so on. And within each one of those items, there are so many others attributes and fields. We didn't want to overwhelm the UI with all the fields, but keep in mind that there are other extra attributes that you can dive in and add them as you see fit. And notice that pretty much everything is optional except the name, to allow you to get this kind of flexibility and follow through depending on your maturity, because we don't want to have like 100 fields to answer just to get started. It's not productive. But once you get there and you need them, they're already available. Once I start putting some date information, they will start appearing in my calendar. And I have other features in the operational side of things. I promised Chris to get highlight about what we released in Q1. Some of the biggest features are around incident management and periodic tasks. So incident management are essentially for a minimalistic ITSM that you can have in the application. We are not aiming to be a full ITSM, but rather for small companies that don't have any tools to track them. Now you can, and you can literally have your full timeline. Yeah, I've been hard time with this new keyboard. All right, let's put it here. And when I go here, you can literally just pick something happened. Right, and you can follow like full timeline. You can attach evidences. It could be quite simple. We literally want it to be as simplistic as possible for small companies to be equipped. But otherwise, if you are not tracking the timeline, you can at least track them. That it can be reused for cases like risk assessment, instead of just doing something very like broad and random. You can base your risk assessment on the previous incident, which makes it more tangible and more concrete, because it's based on statistics and based on the incident you identified. So yeah, you can also create those links between incident and risk assessment. And just this week, we released version 2.4 that now brings periodic tasks, where you can even automate some specific task, either one time or recurrent, and you're gonna have this kind of Outlook-ish experience to define your frequencies, the interval, the date, so that you can get automated reminders. Let's say that for this one, I need to do my patches review, and I'm gonna do it weekly on each Tuesday. No pun intended there. And let's put it here. And when I'm looking at my calendar, I will see patch reviews appearing on my calendar. Right, so those are some of the new features. Now, continuing, once we start working on that operational side of things, one recommendation is, if you're just starting with the application, one thing that is highly recommended is to import at least your basic capabilities, so that you can reuse them when you're doing compliance, where you're doing risk, and so on. It's not mandatory, but it's highly recommended, and you'll see in a second why. Otherwise, you can just start from scratch, and it's just completely fine. Now, let's pick one of the journeys that I mentioned. I will start with the one around compliance. Chris, don't hesitate to interrupt me because of the timekeeping, or just drop it in the chat.
Yeah, if you wanted to cover a couple questions
Susan is
now,
asking a good question. Let's take a break to answer some questions. Yeah, Susan is making a good point. Does it sync with Outlook calendar or tools? Not yet, but this is something that has been requested since we released the feature this week. This was one of the first that got requested. I think we can export some ICS format at least or something, and we'll see what kind of CalDev protocol that we can expose, and you can sync it both ways. I don't know if we can do bi-directional, but at least, yeah, I think it will be at least useful one direction from CISO Assistant to Outlook. This is what we
And
have.
that also closely coincides with this other question here too for different types of integrations. One of the things I was going to just highlight is I do see the API on the roadmap.
Yeah, so the API is definitely the way we choose for that. We gave it like for the developers to see what kind of use cases they develop on top of. You can see some community resources where people actually are linking it to their like Azure security, not security center, but Defender, and bring in the data, they parse it and send it. What we showcased like in a convention in France like 2 weeks ago, we introduced new concepts based on Kafka bus. So it's something we call the dispatcher. So the dispatcher is the way forward that will allow us to scale way better than directly the API, because we did like 3 months ago some testing on the API, and we've seen that if you hammer it like with a lot of events, and we targeted like 1 million events or something, you can start noticing some slowness on the end users. So that's why we introduced this asynchronous concepts called the dispatcher. And with this, we can go up like to 10 million events per day, and you don't even notice any slowness on the application. So how it would look like, it's we will provide some kind of blueprints for developers so that they can build their plugins and link it to Defender for Cloud. They can link it to their EDR. They can link it to whatever tool that will make sense for GRC. I have a lot of things to say about this kind of promise around GRC automation. I think sometimes it's kind of a bit oversell to say, yeah, you can just plug 1 or 2 tools and everything to be automatically done for you. I don't believe so. I think there's some potential there to bring maybe 20, 30% of your compliance workload and delegate it to some bots 100%. But the rest of it will need to be reviewed and refined and manually challenged. And we will be focusing on those 30% with the community. So yeah, right now, the first integration that we finished with Prowler, which is another open source solution. They're a very nice team doing hardening review of Kubernetes, of Azure, of AWS, and even GCP projects and instances. And you can get like the information about the CIS controls. You can get information about the CIS benchmarks in cases, and even PCI DSS in others. So yeah, this is the first integration that we finished, and it can get you a lot of valuable information thanks to the Prowler integration.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and 8-Bit was also curious about that API on the roadmap itself.
So
I think that's really exciting, and
yeah.
I think a lot of people would agree with the automation aspect.
Yeah.
You also showcased in one of the recent updates where you can also integrate it with some of the AI tools to export it. Yeah, that was a really neat feature.
Yeah, we'll see if we still have time. Maybe I can just hack a demo real quick on this one. That could be interesting, because on AI we have 2 or 3 streams that we kind of shortlisted for this year. The first one was how can you link it to your existing AI engine? Let's say you're using ChatGPT or Claude. The good thing is that MCP protocol is getting more mature by the day. So we already implemented MCP like a week or 10 days ago. That was the trendy post that you saw. So you can literally chat with everything you have on CISO Assistant with your cloud desktop, for instance. That's one case. The other case will be how we can get those natural query languages in CISO Assistant. So instead of like navigating on the menu, you will literally ask the application, show me my to-do actions for the next month, and it will cherry pick all the information and get it like in simple format. And then we have a third case, which is around the document ingestion. Can I just like feed it all my policies and everything, and it will do some magic and tell me where I'm good, where I'm not. And I think the last one was regarding risk assessment. Yeah, it will kind of have a chat to help you do like rapid risk assessment. Yeah,
and that's kind of outside of my area whatsoever. So MCP, I saw the video for it. I think it's a really cool feature. Like 8-Bit mentions in chat, is MCP is the future with AI. So
it's one protocol that
definitely
is
an awesome aspect. I also did drop the docs for CISO Assistant in chat. So I noticed that you guys are doing all kinds of updates. Also, you guys got more of these diagrams put together as well. So the docs are definitely a living document. I see you guys are expanding that further. But I do see this question from multiple people as well on like where to start. And kind of, I wanted to kind of give my take on it where when I set it up on Docker, I actually just loaded in the demo data and I was just playing around with it to see how it connected together. Is kind of where I started. But did you have some advice on that?
Okay, so yeah, let me just answer Susan very quick about the decoupling because it's a good transition to your point. So decoupling, Susan, is the simple idea of let's say that you're dealing with compliance. The standard way of doing those things is that you can start an audit, and within this audit, you need to answer a set of requirements, right? So the standard way is to answer each requirement and say what you've done and have the evidences and everything answering each requirement within the audit document. What we're suggesting with the decoupling is to not do that, but to rather link your requirement to your actual control. Because when you think about it, in order to comply with the requirements, you're going to implement something. That something could be technical, could be documentation, could be a process, could be a policy, could be so many things. The whole thing with this decoupling is to put them outside of the compliance so that they can live in a common land that is called the action plan. When you do that, you will get a lot of benefits. The first one is that you can reuse that item across multiple requirements because sometimes you have some actions that can benefit multiple requirements at once. That's the first benefit. The second one is when you're doing revisions of an audit, you don't start from scratch. You can pick the existing controls. And the third one is, let's say that you're moving to a different framework this time, and you say something in the first standard, they're telling you you need some workload protection. In the other, it's telling you protect your workloads. And you say, okay, they're pretty much the same thing. So I can just pick up the controls that is related to that topic and reuse it. So the keyword here is the decoupling to allow reusability. Does it make sense? All right, perfect.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one.
Now that you understand this,
I dropped that link to it too.
Perfect. So if now we want to move forward and that now I've understood the key concept, I think there are multiple ways to get started. I also advise what Corey just said. If you're just starting, you can literally just get here. Let me actually mimic this. So if you don't have the demo data, you can literally just, I'm gonna also do some other fun features. Should have cleaned this one, but at least you saw this whole idea of domains, and we should be good. So pretty much if I delete everything, so that I delete all those containers, when I'm coming back to the application, I still left some items at the global level. It's fine. So when you're just starting, nothing to show. You will have a prompt asking you to load demo data. If you missed it, you can just go here and load demo data. What it will do, it will create this demo domain that will have those fake perimeters, but at least it gets you started. And you will see already some dummy data imported on your behalf, and they're already presented and showcasing multiple layers, and you can dive into each one and see like the compliance management, how it's done. You can go back and go to risk assessment and see a sample risk assessment, how it's done. So this introduction by examples is probably the simplest one. What we've done also is that we added this recently an extra features called Quick Start. In case you don't want to go there and you already have some clear ideas about the fact, okay, let's just dive in and let's start my first audit. And I don't want to create any organization. I don't want to create anything. I can just do this. I can choose my whole library at once. I can pick whatever framework. Let's pick the NIST, let's say AI risk management framework, and you can choose for this quick start, do you want also to initiate a risk assessment or not? Let's leave it for now. And when you do that, automatically it will create a first instance of your audit and you can just dive in. So notice here that I didn't configure any domain, I didn't configure any users. It's already built in just to get you started very quickly with this quick start thing. Now, the recommendation, if I have to put it in a written format, because this was kind of the question, is I'm going to give you my like 10 reference points that you can again pause and go back to. It's to think about how to map your organization to the domain and parameters concept that I explained. Start having your users, identify the assets, then you can start enumerating your controls. Those are recommended. They are not mandatory, but highly recommended. Then you can, and you should probably start by focusing on your baseline. So I know that there are so many angles to begin with the application, but starting with compliance is good, at least to establish a baseline, and then you will see what are your weaknesses and what are your like drifts or compliances and begin there. And for each one of them, you will pick your controls and link them. How are you going to do this? Is that when, let's say that we checked this AI RMF, I can just look at my items here and I can pick this one, say, okay, good, let's go. For this one, by the way, this one is good. I can just pick all the items that I already imported. If I don't have any one that I imported, I can just create one on the spot. Some procedure to do. And let's assign it to someone. This one is in progress. I can even tell those informations. Again, those are not mandatory, but see, it's assigned on the spot. And as you go further, you can always flip the page in multiple places in CISO Assistant and look at it, but with a different angle. Here, I'm looking at it as an analyst. I can flip the page as an operational. Here, it's giving me the extract of the action plan associated to my audit so that I can see where am I with those actions. And the same thing can be applied for risk assessment. If I go to this analysis, for instance, I can always flip the page and see where am I with those items. So this duality is pretty much everywhere, and you can find it pretty powerful once you get used to it. So yeah, going back to Chris' points, there's so many angles, but probably the easiest one is to just get started with demo data, or you can follow those recommendations that I'm showing here. Once you are good at your baseline, I think it's better just to stick to that and try to move your actions as much as possible to establish like a good foundations for your program. Then you can move to some contextual risk assessment and start building your risk registry or register. Start sharing your insight. You can generate report. You can communicate with your management. Start working with your colleagues toward prioritizing all those actions and reviewing their impacts. And most of all, don't think of it as a static object. Think of it as something that is alive, that needs to be enriched and reviewed and challenged and changed and evolving as you go down the road and you get more feedbacks from your colleagues. This is the way to have something sustainable, is by making it alive and interact with your colleagues to just to make sense of it and have their feedback integrated as well. Once you get there, you can start expanding your coverage with periodic tasks, with incident management, TPRM, finding management for and all those generic objects that can be used and useful for your next step of the journey. But the most important aspect is to always keep focus on your action plan and use that action plan to inform the status of the audit or the risk assessment, and not the other way. This way, you keep something very operational and something very simple and manageable on the long run. All right, so let's go back So the questions, yeah, I see I missed a lot of them.
There's a really good one
Yeah,
here
go ahead.
about importing TPRM questionnaires. I did play around with that system a little bit. I really like what you guys are doing over there with the
Yeah,
third party.
perfect. So let's do that. So the thing about TPRM is what we've done is that we reused the component that we built for audits and we tweaked it to make it manageable for third parties, and we enriched the data model to not only support requirements but support sub questions that are helping with those requirements. So you can go down as far as you want in the enrichment of the details that you want to pick. So the whole thing is you need to define some entities. Those are the vendors, for instance, that you're looking to assess, then the solutions that are within those entities. Once you have those items, you can start doing some entities assessment, which is your TPRM. And the recommended pattern is to get them to feed the answers directly to CISO Assistant. So this way, you don't even need to manage those files. In case you cannot do that, you have also a feature that is called the data import wizard, where you can literally have their Excel sheets converted to CISO Assistant in one click, as long as that they follow the templates. They can answer the Excel sheets, and you just import it, and it will appear on CISO Assistant. Is that what you have in mind about like the questionnaire that have been filled by the provider, or was it regarding how can we define our own questionnaires?
Yeah, theirs was in regards to actually importing it itself, but I really like the feature where it's all built into it. But yeah, like you're also showing, you can import it from the Excel. You also
Yeah.
have that new data importer wizard as well, which I think is really neat. I know a couple of people who were struggling before you guys released that, making their own scripts to try to do the imports.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a really unique feature. I think one of the
100%.
biggest benefits that I see with a tool like this is, especially in the community edition, you guys have so many different features built in, and it really gets people thinking about like, oh, maybe we should do this. Maybe we should do that. That's
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that I've seen. And I was actually going to just show this real quick.
Yeah, please.
Because this is what I think of when people are asking, like, what are the steps we should do? And so this is based off the 853 from NIST. And this is the process that they define in the 837. And this is what I've typically been telling people is like, oh, well, we need to categorize. We need to select what we're going to do. And it's very similar to, you know, when you go into the GRC tool, especially like CISO Assistant, I still see this method, this process to be very familiar and
Yeah,
a good
100%.
reference point.
Yeah. It's definitely compatible with this vision of the 853, and I totally agree. It could, that's the only thing that we want to do there is we're not promising anything revolutionary. We will just to break it down to something simplistic and can be digested by even users that are new to this realm.
Mm-hmm.
Or we try also to kind of convert people who hate GRC and think of it as something like old school, outdated, and too complex with no value, by showing that actually it's a, yeah, there are some bad practices in GRC, 100%. But what if we think about it as a data model problem? Let's try to think about it how the objects are interacting with each other. Let's think about it as engineers and try to structure it in an optimal way and reusable way. And this is the whole vision of CISO Assistant, is to be that tool for that vision.
Yeah, and if anybody else has any other questions, definitely drop that in chat. This is definitely a great opportunity to go through and ask questions. There's a lot of different features here. Like I mentioned a moment ago, is the docs. I know you guys are getting that, you know, figured out a lot better. But I think one of the difficult parts about that is you guys are on such a rapid deployment. It seems like you guys are doing an awesome job.
Yeah, I don't know how can we like adjust this, because on one hand you know that you need to be like active and deliver all those features, and on the other hand people need some time to digest all those features and get used to them before you ship the next one. But yeah, there's a trade-off there. We try to slow down actually our release rhythm, to be honest, because we do like 2 or 3 releases per week. which is maybe too much for most users. So maybe we're going to add some flags on each release to say, by the way, this is like a major one, you should not skip it. So that actually like the more tech guys can follow everything as we go further, and the others maybe can be good enough for them to be like bi-weekly or something, a monthly rhythm should be enough for them. So yeah, there's some trade-off and some adjustment to do there, but we definitely we want to keep our rhythm, because what's cool about this is that thanks to this interaction with the community, you've seen the Discord server, like literally we release the feature, maybe like 2 hours later on, someone comes with a feedback and say, oh, by the way, I've seen the feature, I didn't understand that label, so we can rapidly actually adjust to that. So this is the whole thing why we want this continuous deployment mode, because it's beneficial for us and for the community.
Oh yeah, of course. And also, while we're at it, did you want to talk a little bit about maybe the community academy you guys are looking at doing that you've talked about a little bit in the Discord server, and like how people within the community can get more involved with it? I've had a few people reach out to me, and I typically just refer them over to the GitHub.
Sure. So for that, what I'm thinking about is maybe we can build that around some built-in journeys, so to speak, to say, let's try to put like very basic and simplistic statements. The statement will be something like, oh yeah, I want to conduct a risk assessment and keep track of a risk register. Let's start with that statement, and we will break it down to features of CISO Assistant. That could be, okay, let's work on identifying the scopes. How can you pick your matrix or customize it? How can you import your assets, and break it down to step by step. So that's the whole vision that we have for CISO Assistant Academy, is to have them as use cases and as journeys, and just build the documentation, reformat it toward this reusable format. So this way I can answer people coming from a risk assessment background, other coming looking specifically for the compliance part with specific regulation, or they're concerned about the vendors management and all TPRM, and so on and so on. So this is how the CISO Assistant Academy will look like. Now, the second part of your question was regarding how we can get contribution. The edition of the documentation will be on Markdown. So anyone who wants to like submit pieces to that documentation can definitely fork the repo and just write some text documentation, fix typos, suggest like some better rewording, and challenge it. And that could be very beneficial for everyone.
Yeah, because there's already quite a few different community aspects there. How many languages do you guys have right now?
We went to 16 since a month ago because now we start having customers in Denmark. So Danish is the latest language that we just added. And I think by May, we will have 2 extra languages because we start having more users in South Korea and Japan. So we'll add Korean and Japanese, obviously.
Yeah, and also like Josh loves the idea of the journey, teaching modules. Yeah, definitely some awesome things coming out, especially the community aspect. I think the Discord server is probably the best way to start getting involved. Yeah. There's all kinds of different channels that they have in there, and they also publish the updates there as well. I did drop the link to Aaron Lounge's LinkedIn. So that's a pretty long link, but that goes directly to that 853 diagram I showed.
Oh, that's pretty neat. Yeah, that's pretty useful.
Yep.
Right. So let me just finish with some frequently asked questions, guys. Again, maybe we are not covering everything, but at least you will have some visual guidance here. One common challenge is this idea about reference controls and applied controls. Maybe sometimes people actually struggle with this. The idea of reference controls are a template so that you can have like a standard definition of the controls, but what matters is the applied control that will be the instance of it in your actual context. I think I went through the domain and parameters as explanation. So domains are for airbag isolation, parameters are more logical concepts within that domain. Can I have my own custom fine-tuned frameworks? Definitely. You just need Python installed on your workstation to run the toolbox and convert your Excel sheets to the expected format by the solution. Can I have my third parties connected directly and answer the questionnaire? That's the recommended way. Just make sure that it's internet facing. Otherwise, they can just connect your instance. Where do I find information about the pricing for the pro plan? How does it work? Since we're fully transparent on everything, you don't even need to reach out to us. You can find everything on the website. And if you don't want to bother with the installation or you're allergic to running a Docker Compose locally, you can definitely go with the process free for 30 days, no credit card required, directly from the website. One thing, as Josh actually mentioned, good point, breaking down those to the user journey. One thing that we're currently working on, should be maybe released in a week or two, is this feature flag management, where you will be able actually to disable some modules of CISO Assistant to avoid being overwhelmed with some of them that are not relevant for you. If you're just doing exclusively like risk assessment, you can hide, let's say, a compliance or vice versa. If you're doing only third parties, you can hide both, and so on and so on. So this is something we're working on to help with the user experience part, where you can hide modules until you are mature enough to enable them and start playing with them. So this way, just to avoid this visual distraction, so to speak. You're welcome, Susan. So yeah, for the journey, I think the next step will be that we'll structure some kind of draft document to enumerate the most relevant journeys and what will be the building blocks for each one of them. And we will definitely count on the community to help with the authoring. We initiated, but we definitely counting on you guys. The only thing that you will need to do there is to write Markdown, which is basically just text, no formatting. The formatting will be handled by the engine. You just focus on the content, and you can do reviews and submit your first pull request pretty simply on the Gitbook solution that we're using. Guys, yeah, perfect. If it helps you understand all those concepts, I'm glad.
Yeah, so much great information. Really going over the tool a lot better here as well. And then also, just so everybody is also aware, like we're sharing CISO Assistant just because it's a great tool. That's really what it comes down to. And honestly, I think that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I kind of feel like you guys might not push the product as much as I feel like you guys should. Because yes, you guys do have the community edition and everything else as well. But also, like, I already know a couple different people who were looking at the Pro edition as well. Yeah. So if you wanted to talk a little bit about that as well. But one of the questions I did get from somebody was they were a little confused about the 100 readers included in your guys' Pro. And then you guys do have some new features that are coming out as well.
Yeah.
Such as the local AI. And yeah, if you want to pull that up.
Yeah, let's go there. I think that person is referring to this sentence here. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this 100 reader included is just a soft limitation that we've put on the instance so that we're not getting overwhelmed, like performance-wise. We can like unlock it when relevant, but its idea is just not to have one contributors like and 10,000 readers. That's the whole thing. So we can unlock it whenever it makes sense. But the whole thing is that we wanted to make the pricing as affordable as possible. With this, it's boiled down, I don't know, it's like $40 on your site per month. So it's not even like 500 euros per year per user. So for like small companies where you have like one user or two users, the budget is pretty reasonable and pretty manageable. And this one can be like unlocked when relevant. What we added recently is that some people don't want actually that linear pricing as you pay per seats. So you can definitely opt in for unlimited seats from day one, with this plan. So, and you pay it like yearly. So we don't even count, and we do it also the other way. So if you're once you exceed like 17 or 18 seats, we automatically switch you to the unlimited mode, and we don't count anymore. Now, for those extra additions, the idea is to have them optional. If you want like very intensive computes, we have some customers who are using CISO Assistant and very large organization. By this, I mean only the security teams. There's about like 300 person only on securities. So think of the volume of and spikes of data. So they opt for the intensive compute, but it's not mandatory because the standard one is more than enough for most cases. And the AI engine is pretty much what we touch point on, is that we want that capability that I showed you on the MCP, but locally on the instance. So basically it will be a dedicated tenant per per each instance. So you can bring your own LLM if you want, or you can pick one that will be shipping. And this will be priced as an extra extension for just to cover the infrastructure cost. That's basically it.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. And, you know, we could kind of leave it at that to that extent, but also I'll throw out that, you know, I find it to be a very competitive price, especially when you look at what else is out there and the availability and features, not to mention your guys' commitment to community on top of all of that as well. From the medium to enterprise, I could definitely see that being a very competitive option. One of the other things I was going to mention too, if you wanted to show the, I believe it's your services page, because that's another important aspect that I like to share with people, is that you guys actively do audits, pen testing, all kinds of different stuff out there as well, right?
Yeah, we kind of slowed down a bit on the pen test recently, but we definitely, it's something part of our expertise as we are drifting our focus or shifting our focus more on the product side of things. Because with CISO Assistant, we have a lot on our plate recently. So yeah, we do audits, but less frequently as we were used to. The thing is that what we're trying to do here, we're building more of a network of auditors. And even we're considering maybe starting in June, we're going to list them on our website. There's so many consultants that are like got very proficient in CISO Assistant, and you can just reach out to the closest one in your region. You mentioned the languages. There are 16 languages, but we're pretty much deployed in about 56 countries, including paid customers or community one. So most likely you already have a friend who are already using CISO Assistant with the volume of download that we exceed like a half million, like last month of downloads. So yeah, it's already number one on GitHub, and we're pretty excited about the impact that we're making. Going back to your point, why we're not pushing that dramatically on the pro plan, because our motivation initially was just, yeah, let's stop the ranting about GRC. Okay, so yeah, there's some broken pieces there, so let's fix them and let's do something about it instead of just like ranting all the time. So we said, okay, how can we do that? Let's make something affordable. Let's build it open source. Let's build it publicly, and the community is giving back because they're giving us feedback, giving us support, and it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely great. And I definitely want to showcase like the different services you guys do as well, because you guys also practice what you preach, which I think is a
100%.
huge, massive portion of it.
Yeah.
So that makes people feel a lot more comfortable, especially when they're looking at that pro edition. Like you said earlier as well, you know, start out on the community edition, do the trial and so forth. Like you guys don't push the pro very much. There were a couple of people that found out about CISO Assistant and didn't even realize you guys had a paid SaaS product for
did they? Okay.
So yeah, and I think that's a really good feature, especially for that medium and enterprise side of it. So yeah, thank you so much for your time today. I know we are coming to an end here in a moment. I don't believe we have any other questions in there. We did cover quite a bit today.
Yeah,
definitely check out the Discord server. The rest of the links will also be in the description. But yeah, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Thank you again for having me. I think, yeah, we can maybe, once we are moving forward with this CISO Assistant Academy, I will drop some instructions for those who want to contribute, and maybe we can schedule another session to focus on the AI topics, because there's so many things there. I know that you're keen to dive into the what we're cooking, so to speak, on the AI part. Next time I can show the MCP part. I can show you like some internal development and how are we trying to transform all those things, and also what you mentioned about the automation part. So I think we can make dedicated session for automation, API, and AI, maybe some next time.
Very exciting. Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you all for hopping in and joining us. And we'll